Hello and welcome to the live stream. Today we're going to be talking about YouTube and specifically talking about the journey that I've taken so far. I'm still relatively a small channel with just over 6,000 subscribers, but it has been quite a journey over the past 2 years nevertheless. So I thought it was a good time to sort of reflect on that and talk a little bit about the sort of origins of the channel and where I'm looking to take it and the sort of pivots that I've made along the way and what has led to those as well. And of course, we'll be talking about the M word, monetization, because I know that a lot of people are talking about that when it comes to YouTube, and they've got certain milestones in their mind around that. But I'll be talking about the way that I've monetized the YouTube channel, or I should say, really, the YouTube business that I'm sort of building out of this. So that's what we're going to be covering. Thanks to everyone for coming and hanging out. Great to see some familiar faces in here. Hi, Katie. Hi, Kalonji as well. Great to see you here. And Tanju, thanks very much. It has indeed been quite a journey. So I thought it would be worth talking a little bit about the origins of the channel, though, because I know that there's some people who have been with me for quite some time now, following along with the progress. But there are also, I know, a number of subscribers, obviously more every day, that are perhaps completely new to the channel and don't maybe understand the sort of origins of it and even the name, because I still get people commenting on my editing skills because they can't see the joins. They say the editing is seamless. They also say I waffle a lot. And those two things are related because I don't actually do any edits. So the channel name Take One Tech is because all of the videos are made in one take with no edits. Obviously this is a live stream, so no edits here, but even in the recorded videos, there's no edits in those either. And that really is kind of part of the reason for the origin of the channel. It was because I was making course content for some other business interests that I've got, not just Take One Tech, or not at all Take One Tech at the time. And I was really my own worst enemy when it came to recording that content. And those course modules and things like that, because I was the on-screen talent in inverted comments, and yeah, really, I was my own worst enemy, because if I felt that I could edit something after the fact, I'd be constantly striving for that sort of perfect take. And usually I would kind of screw it up, because I would then think, well, I'll just retake this little bit and then maybe, stitch it all together afterwards. And then I'd come to do the edit and then I'd realize that I didn't even have all of the right components I needed to stitch it all together. And it was a constant sort of back and forth with me recording these things and then trying to make something that made sense out of it. And I kind of figured that there must be a better way of doing this, because, when I'm sitting down talking to somebody, teaching them something, because I do find that I'm a lot of people's go-to tech guy, whether it's friends, family, business colleagues, and so on. And then also just with running a business and having staff, having to educate those people and sort of train them on, particular ways to do things. I don't have any issue with sitting down with somebody and teaching somebody something. I don't sort of fall over my words and think, oh, I've got to retake this particular sentence or paragraph like I did do when I was sort of sitting in front of a camera looking into a lens and figuring out, I'd got to make this bit of educational content. So as I say, I figured that there must be just a way to do this. If I could just do it as if I was sitting with somebody or standing on a stage talking to a group or whatever, then there wouldn't be any issue. And so that's when I started looking for ways that I could perhaps do this. And then I realized very quickly that there is in fact software that you can use to do this. And the first bit of software I found was something called OBS, Open Broadcast Software, which allows you to basically take your camera feeds directly into your directly into your computer, I should say, have your microphones plugged in, set up various different scenes. So for, showing your desktop, different camera angles, whatever it happens to be, and then just basically switching between those to live produce your video content. So that's the way I started, and fortunately I only lasted about a month on OBS. I always say I pulled out my last hair with OBS, but it really didn't speak to my my sort of way of thinking. It was not at all logical. It was a little bit like, I liken it to when I switched from PC to Mac. I suddenly realized that there was this much better way, in my view, of doing things, and at least that worked more in line with the way that I think, essentially. So after sort of struggling, I would say, with OBS, or maybe not struggling is not the right word, but just feeling like this isn't logical. Yes, I know how to do all of these things, but it's not at all sort of an easy, logical, step-by-step process to do it. I just happened to be watching one of the video podcasts I've been watching now for over 15 years at this point, I think, Mac Break Weekly with Leo Laporte, and there was a chap on there, Mr. Doc Rock, and he just happened to sort of drop this word Ecamm Live into it. That's 2 words, isn't it? But there you go. So he just mentioned Ecamm Live, and it wasn't a big part that he sort of talked about it, but he just mentioned that Ecamm Live was something that he was using. I think that was before he was the community manager, maybe at that point when I saw that. But I just thought, well, that sounds interesting. He mentioned it was live production software, so I went and checked it out, and sure enough, it just completely spoke my language. So immediately switched over from OBS to Ecamm. I just realized how easy it is to create scenes, create layouts, and do all of the things that I wanted to do with this custom Mac app, or I should say an app built specifically for the Mac, as opposed to OBS, which is cross-platform, so it works on Mac and PC. The trouble with cross-platform is usually you end up with the worst of both worlds. You don't get the best because it has to sort of make compromises to do things on one platform versus the other. So yeah, definitely Ecamm being just a solely Mac-based product built for Macs and to optimize to get the best performance out of the app from a Mac, it just made total sense to me. It just worked the way that I think. Everyone thinks differently, but this just sort of spoke my language. So that is when I started making the course content for these other projects that I was working on. But I wanted a way to actually practice this process of making videos in one take. And obviously all of the course content was going to be kind of tutorial style videos. So I figured, well, I'll start a YouTube channel where I can just practice this process of making videos in one take. That isn't necessarily as sort of mission critical, shall we say, as creating a course that is going to be sort of monetized immediately. And so one of my passions is obviously tech, and getting things done on the Mac. Productivity is something that I'm, very into. I've got a lot of systems, and it's something that people often comment on that know me sort of outside of YouTube, is the way that I do things on the computer and the sort of the efficiency systems that I put in place to get things done. So that was really going to be the focus of the channel, is covering how I do all of those things on the Mac, and obviously just making all those videos in one take. So as well as Ecamm Live, there was a couple of bits of equipment that I invested in to sort of help with the channel, and obviously making the other videos as well. One was this microphone, Shure MV7. This has been my microphone all the time, although everything else seems to have changed in the studio around me. This is one thing that has stayed the same, and also my Stream Deck. Stream Deck XL was the first one that I bought. It has multiplied since then. So the live stream last week, I should say, was all about how I'm using 5 of them now, and yet there will be more added into the mix at some point. But the Stream Deck was something that I bought because looking into video production and live streaming, it was something that came to my attention through that, and so I bought the Stream Deck XL thinking that I was going to be using it for just switching scenes in Ecamm and basically running the live production of these recorded videos. However, when I got it, I quickly realized what an amazing productivity tool it is just in its own right, completely separate from streaming. And certainly now I use it a lot more for just general productivity on the computer than I do for recording or live streaming. And so this combined with Ecamm, these two sort of products, hardware and software, really kind of captivated me. I just found that there was something really magical about the way that you can, live stream, create videos, and then obviously, using this in Zoom calls as well to take Ecamm into Zoom. All of this kind of stuff was just, it kind of blew my mind, quite frankly, like how easy it was to do all of this thing, all of this stuff. And it really enabled me to, get my message across in YouTube, obviously, but then also, in meetings and things like that. And so these things that sort of captivated me then became the focus of my my attention, and I was just so sort of overjoyed with them that became almost like the focus of the channel. So if you look at the channel content now, well over a third of the videos are specifically Ecamm Live, maybe another third are Stream Deck. Last year added the Rodecaster into the mix as well, so there's obviously been more sort of Rodecaster content as well. And so that wasn't necessarily intentional when I started. It wasn't going to be a channel about the tools. It's just that those were the things that were giving me the most joy. And so that is what I ended up sort of making the content about. And there's a bit of a lesson in there as well, which is, when you're starting out, you might have an idea of what the channel is going to be. But don't necessarily be, afraid or worried to sort of pivot or make a few changes. And I've certainly done that. I always set myself big goals and things like that, but I'm never, afraid to take a pivot if I see that there's some other opportunity in a slightly different direction. And I would say that that's the same with your audience as well. The first live stream that I did, which was my first video on YouTube, was effectively 2 years ago. So it's the 13th here. It was on the 15th of May in 2021. And yeah, it was a live stream to nobody. I literally started obviously with 0 subscribers, but I didn't do any marketing for it. I didn't send anything out to, an existing database or anything like that. I wanted to really see the process of growing a channel organically. And that was kind of another side sort of project to this, is to be able to just, understand what it takes to grow a channel so that I can then talk about that with clients in other businesses in terms of how you can grow a channel to support your business, sort of separately. So as a sort of side experiment, I guess. So I didn't really tell anybody about it. I didn't do any promotion of it. Started with 0, did my first live stream to nobody, which I've got to confess did feel very weird indeed. Talking to yourself when you're on a camera where you know that you're just recording it is one thing, but there was something weird about sort of broadcasting technically to the world, and yet there was nobody there watching in any case. So, and I think that very first live stream has had like 100 and something views, 115 views since then. So it's not like, and I wouldn't recommend necessarily going back and watching it. I did get it up just to have a little bit of a look back at it before I started this. And yeah, I think cringeworthy is the word I would use for me, personally at least. And there's another little thing in there though, which is part of the thing about doing these things in one take was actually just getting over myself, because ultimately the reason why I had such a trouble with editing for myself was my perfectionism. And that was something that I always felt, at times held me back. And it was that case of having to get something absolutely perfect in my mind before I would ship it, get it out of the door, as it were. And that was something I did struggle with in terms of just needing to feel like something was, absolutely perfect before I would kind of release it. And so the channel, obviously, just by the very nature of doing things in one take and not giving myself a second go at it, by their very nature, I am not happy with any video I have ever created. However, I'm happy with being unhappy about it now, if that makes sense. So what I mean by that is none of them are perfect. I know they're not perfect, but I now accept that. And I don't have my top on today, my recovering perfectionist, but I've got my hat handy. So the recovering perfectionist in me is all about just sort of getting over myself and saying, right, well, I'll just put this thing out, because it's much better to actually, get the knowledge out there if I'm, with what I'm doing, sort of sharing this information with people. It's better that I just get it out there in its kind of raw and imperfect state, rather than me sort of agonizing over the finer details of absolutely every last detail, more to the point, of a video, and then people not actually getting the benefit from it. So I do think that is important, that people understand that, there isn't necessarily an expectation of things having to be absolutely perfect and edited to within an inch of its life. And it's much better to just sort of come out in at least to get something out there. And I think that there's a thing where we are kind of like our own worst enemies as well sometimes, because we have this idea of like, if we put something out and it's not perfect, what is it that we're actually afraid of? And, it's this kind of almost, I guess, fear of embarrassment, fear of, the idea that, somebody may think less of us perhaps if we put something out that isn't, perfect, isn't what we know is our best. But then that thing comes back to, well, if it's a fear of embarrassment, it's fear of what people might think of us. But actually what people might think of you is probably nowhere near as bad as what you kind of think of yourself. Or I should be talking in terms of me, I guess. But yeah, most people are very forgiving, and they understand that, if you're on, live streaming or you're making videos, first of all, you're in the minority in any case. Most people are not doing that. Most people are consuming it rather than watching it. And I've got a lot of admiration and respect for the fact that you're doing it. I know that I personally have for the content creators that I watch. And certainly before I was on YouTube as well, just sort of seeing people getting out there and doing it was something that I was, filled with admiration for people. And so when somebody makes a little slip up or a mistake, you don't worry about it. And so when we are making mistakes ourselves, I would say we shouldn't. Obviously, if you do make some major mistake, then you might want to correct it, as I did on a recent video where I said something that turned out not to be quite as I had portrayed it. So I made a video afterwards to say, hey, I was wrong about it. And as long as you've got that kind of authenticity, to use that word, so early in the video, but if you've got that where you're prepared to admit when you're wrong, then that is definitely a point. But in terms of just the odd little mistake here and there, you'll see through my videos that I often sort of fall over my words occasionally and just sort of correct myself or make little errors. People don't mind. I think it just makes it feel more real. And certainly the creators that I had watched previously to starting my channel, those were the ones that really resonated with me, the ones that were a lot more sort of real and down to earth and just felt like I was having a conversation with them. Now, when it came to actually starting the channel, I didn't just go straight into it. So although I've said, I'm a recovering perfectionist and I didn't need everything to be perfect, I'm also not an advocate of this idea of, just pick up your phone. You've got a phone in your pocket, just go live, go live on YouTube, just grab your phone, anybody can do it and that sort of stuff. I'm not that sort of person either. I do feel that I'd need to do some preparation. And so I did do some preparation for the channel. And so although my first live stream was 2 years ago, my first video on YouTube, the actual channel was created about a month before that. And in that month, I spent time setting up my scenes in Ecamm, setting up my website, putting things into place as well. And I gave myself a deadline. So I'm not a proponent, as I say, of just go live without any preparation whatsoever. But I am a proponent of the idea of just set a deadline for when you are going to go live and then basically just do it then. Don't sort of keep delaying it and delaying it. And so after I set up the YouTube channel, I kind of scheduled that first live stream 2 weeks out, I guess. So I had given myself that very firm deadline. I also think that one of the things that has helped me on the path, without a shadow of a doubt, is being a part of an accountability group. Now, I started when my channel went live on that first day. I'd actually already signed up to Doc Rock's group, and I had my first session with that the day after I went live. And I was very intentional about not joining an accountability group before I went live for the first time and before I actually started the ball rolling, because what I was worried about was me going into a group full of lots of different people with lots of different ideas and then getting myself sidetracked. So I wanted to make sure that I'd got a very firm plan in place myself first, and then you get the ball rolling and then join a group that would then help me with the sort of ongoing accountability and sort of adjusting things as I went forward, rather than allowing myself to be derailed by lots of other ideas before I'd even got off the ground. So that was the way that I approached that. Now, I've continued to be in an accountability group on an ongoing basis. Most recently, obviously, with the Creators Pod. So that's the podcast that we have. There's 6 of us in there. And it's been a real sort of a real help in just knowing that you've got a group of people who are sort of looking out for you and that you can always bounce ideas off. I think having an accountability group is really important in anything. I've always been parts of accountability groups, coaching groups, mentorships, and things like that. And that's part of the reason why when I set up the Academy, it was important for me, the Take One Tech Academy. I suppose I should just mention this. I'll come to it a bit later as well. But if you're interested in checking out the Academy, takeonetech.io/academy. But part of that, depending on the tier that you're on, is this idea of being a part of a group. And so we have weekly Q&As in there, and then ongoing coaching and group coaching and things like that. So I do think that is a really important part of doing anything, and having that sort of that support of peers who are on a similar path, and you can bounce ideas off. And there's been lots of things that I've I've been considering one way or another, and just bounced it around in the group, and got the answer back immediately. So highly recommend that. And in terms of having a plan, as I say, I did have a very clear plan of what I was going to do when I started. And one of the bits of advice that I got from Doc before he even knew that he was my creator coach was that you shouldn't really look at the stats before you've done 100 videos. And so that's what I set myself a target when I started the channel off, of doing 100 videos in my first 100 days. I figured, right, well, let me just get that out there, and then we can start to look at ways to improve on that and get some meaningful stats from the content I was creating. And so I did achieve that. I did the 100 videos in 100 days, not necessarily one every day. Sometimes I did 2, sometimes I did none, so it all sort of evened out. And then after that 100 days, I basically extended that to the idea of doing 365 videos in a year. And ultimately, I fell a little bit short of that. I think I ended up doing 310 or 300 or something like that. I can't remember exactly, because a number of things that came up throughout the year, so I wasn't able to quite manage that. But nevertheless, nevertheless, it did mean that I got that initial start where I did get some, sort of real data, and also, got to understand who my audience was. And this is this weird thing of, I mentioned the first live stream just talking into the camera, nobody watching at all. And then slowly over time, the audience reveal themselves to you. And it's just been a wonderful experience, to be honest, to actually get that sort of feedback, to get the comments, to understand who it is that I'm actually helping with the content, and then also get that feeding back into ideas for new content and ways to sort of adapt and evolve. So that is an ongoing thing as well. That sort of audience identification, I guess, is a sort of ongoing thing. And yeah, I've got to say, it's not quite exactly who I thought necessarily it was going to be when I started out, and it's sort of grown over over time. Thanks, Rich, for the Slacker comment there. So. And yeah, there is that as well. I'll just say Keely is one of the creators part, along with Rich as well. That is a big part of it. It's not just about the accountability and, this is what I'm going to do and am I going to do it. It is about the the camaraderie and the stuff that goes on in the back end as well. Yeah, just a really close group of friends at this point. So yeah, there's a lot more to it than just accountability, really. But that is what you get when you build these close bonds with people who you're all sort of striving for similar goals together with. So yeah, the 100 video target was there, and that was great. One thing I'll say is that when it comes to the analytics, that is something that I have been on top of from day one. I used to always look at the analytics even up until 100 videos, but I wasn't just basically tweaking based on them. I was always, I'm a bit of a data geek in any case, so I'm always interested in that kind of stuff. But it was crucial to just basically get the content out there to begin with before starting to look to how to sort of tweak and refine. And I did make some changes. I'll talk about this a little bit later, but I did make some changes to, things like thumbnail styles and so on. And I'll come to that a little bit later, because it's not always what you think, and you don't necessarily always, or I don't necessarily always know best. Even though I thought something looked better, it turned out it wasn't. It wasn't better after all, and you can only get that with data. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. But having an audience and starting with a plan is important. And as I say, the audience will reveal itself, and don't be afraid to pivot. But if we look at actually how the growth has gone in those since I started, obviously starting off with 0, so that was 14th of May. Now it took me up until the end of 2021 to get up to 1,000 subscribers, and that is kind of this milestone that I think a lot of people when they're starting out on YouTube have. Because in order to get monetized on YouTube, whereby you can join the YouTube partner program and you start receiving commission from ad revenue, basically from the ads that are run on YouTube, then you need to have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. And because I was producing so many videos and also live streaming every week, then I did actually hit the 4,000 hours long before that. But the 1,000 subscribers actually came at about 10 minutes to midnight on New Year's Eve. So it was exactly at the end of 2021 where I hit that number, and then was technically monetized on YouTube. Now, up until 2020, end of 2022, so in the following year, I added another 3,000 subscribers. So the kind of rate of increase was increasing as well. And then came to, if I press the right button, Streams X good as long as you press the right button. Then in today, I am up to 6,100. So that's just in over, sort of 4.5 months. I've added another 2,100 to that amount. So the rate of increase, as I say, is increasing as well. But the one that was quite a landmark for me as well was on the 27th of March, hit 500,000 views. Now, I know that there are many videos themselves where you look at the video and the video has had over 1 million views. So it's all relative, isn't it? But for me, the idea that there'd been 500,000 views on my videos seemed quite, unbelievable, really. When I think about what I started out doing and the sort of growth of it, that seemed to me, like quite a nice milestone. I've just checked today, and I'm basically about 1,000 or 2,000 videos off 600,000. So it just goes to show how that sort of rate of increase does does sort of increase and compounds over time. And everybody talks about this kind of like hockey stick, curve where it's, starts off and it seems like it's slow and then it sort of can grow exponentially. Obviously, it doesn't happen to everybody, but I'm certainly seeing the start of those kind of changes where, the distance between milestones is getting closer and closer together. And so to be at nearly 6,000 now is, I'm just kind of blown away by it. And I'm just thankful for everybody who watches and comments. And I just really am pleased that people find the content useful and valuable as well. So that's been the sort of growth path so far. And in terms of the time spent, there has been a bit of a change in the time spent on YouTube. But ironically, the more time I've spent on my YouTube business, the less actual content has been going out on YouTube. So I mentioned that I basically did this for trying to get this 365 videos out in a year. And so that would have obviously taken me to May last year. And I was pretty much doing, an average of a video a day. But then I would say it was kind of middle of April, right in the middle of Cedar, create every day in April last year. Some things happened in my the other side of my business life that basically just required a lot more of my attention. And so I kind of stopped making as many YouTube videos around that time. But that also spurred me into potentially looking at spending more time on the Take One Tech business. And what I was doing up until that point was I would have 2 hours every day where I would spend on making a video. And obviously, this whole one take thing, that's where that came into, into being really helped me to be able to achieve that, because essentially I'd wake up at 3 a.m. That's what time I get up. And then between 4 and 6 was kind of my YouTube time. And so that would be the time where I would, wake up, decide what video I was going to make, record the video. So my videos typically on YouTube have been around about 30 minutes, something like that. So I'd record a 30-minute video, make the thumbnail, upload the video, and do whatever else I needed to do to sort of, manage the channel basically and any other communication that was going on within that sort of 2-hour window. So it's essentially 2 hours a day that I was spending on YouTube crucially before the kids got up, before it got noisy in the house, and then before I got on with, all the other work that I was doing throughout the day. So this sort of changed, though, as I say, last year, where I decided that I was going to spend more time on the Take One Tech brand, the Take One Tech business. And I actually launched the first course separate from YouTube. So on my website, so I've got a number of different courses on there. And the first one was my Ecamm Live Masterclass. And that launched around about the end of April, I think, last year. And I still was only doing this kind of sort of part-time at that point, but then was looking to basically grow this into a fully fledged business of itself, because I mentioned about monetization and reaching that monetization level, but everyone will tell you, when you get monetized on YouTube, it's not like suddenly, the millions start running in, certainly not with a channel my size. And I'm happy to share what that is in terms of how it looks. If I go over to my my analytics, go over to there you go, look, just exactly 6,100 just today. So if I go to my analytics, and then here you'll see my channel views. So the last 28 days, so the revenue from YouTube in the last month, basically just nearly $500 thereabouts. And that is kind of pretty typical from a month-to-month basis right now. Obviously, the more views you get, the more that sort of increases. But if I go to lifetime, and bear in mind, this is effectively monetization since December of last year. If you go to the monetization section, so there it starts on December the 31st, the first amount coming in. And then, the total amount in all of that time is $4,700. So if you think about the amount of time spent to do all of this, you're not really getting paid handsomely just yet from this figure. But I do want to share that because people often talk about how, it's... don't expect big things necessarily when you first get monetized. It's not a major thing, and that is true. However, this is only about 4% of the revenue from Take One Tech as a brand. So that's something to be aware of. There are plenty of other ways that you can monetize on YouTube without, considering this being the primary source. And it certainly isn't my primary source of monetization for the channel. And in fact, even at the date when I got monetized here at the end of 2021, the day that I got monetized on YouTube, technically from all of the other things that I'd been doing, so the other ways that I was monetizing the channel, had already made more than that amount here that I've had ever since getting monetized. So things like consultation calls, which I started offering right from the outset. So I'd set up and I should have probably mentioned this as part of that preparation. I mentioned I spent a month getting prepared. One of the other things I did was set up all of my affiliate links for things like, Amazon links, Buy Me a Coffee, which is a great way to just get that initial encouragement. I think people do like to support, certainly new creators starting out as well. So having something like Buy Me a Coffee, which allows people to go and just make like a one-off donation, as well as having memberships. So I did set up memberships from the beginning as well, and it was maybe like a couple of months in, I would say, that had somebody first sign up to that. But then also being able to set up things for people to like book calls. So although now I do offer consultations on my main website, and you can book a call with me on there, that's all done through my website right now. But originally I just did that as part of the Buy Me a Coffee, and that was a great way to sort of help get monetized. So I digress slightly. I've sort of jumped back a little bit there, but yeah, the point is that the monetization on YouTube is just sort of one small fraction of what you can actually create out of it if you're using YouTube as more of an inbound marketing tool. So there being outbound marketing, being you going and paying for ads and being proactive about going and bringing in clients. Inbound marketing is more kind of like content marketing, basically. So the sort of stuff on YouTube where you're sort of getting to know people, or people are getting to know you through the content. And this could be on YouTube, it could be in a blog, it could be in other social media platforms, wherever that happens to be. That's what they call inbound marketing. And so if you're using YouTube as a tool for that, then yeah, there's plenty of other ways that you can monetize from that. And I will be talking a little bit about sort of how my thought process has changed towards this a little bit later as we go on. But just always being mindful, though, of how things are changing. And there's an expression which is used a lot in business, which comes from the world of ice hockey, I believe. And it's skate to where the puck is going. And it's this idea of rather than being reactive to what is happening right in the moment, directly in front of you, and sort of skating towards the target, actually look at a more longer term trajectory of, in this case, where the ice hockey puck is traveling to, and you want to be heading to that direction so that you're going to sort of meet up with it. And so what it means is sometimes it might feel like you're sort of going off on a tangent potentially, or off somewhere where like I'll give you an example. When I set up the Discord community, thanks to Keely showing me the light there, the Discord coach. When I set that up, there was lots of things that I was putting in place that really, weren't necessarily warranted for the size of community I had or what I was doing at that specific time. But it was knowing that, where I wanted to take things, that I was putting those things in place in advance, so that I had that structure in place when I did, in fact, want to make those changes and so on. So I think that is something to just bear in mind, is when you are like looking at the ways things are changing, then just bear that in mind to sort of put those systems in place. And just coming back to the courses, then I feel like I'm jumping around a little bit, so to excuse me. But when I did release my first course, then the Ecamm Masterclass, shortly followed by the Zoom course, and then the Roadcaster course came out towards the end of last year, in around about October. And in my mind, I had this idea of, well, I'm building a collection of courses here. And incidentally, the reason for those courses was free information on YouTube is great, and I don't hold back any information. I never put up a paywall and say, right, well, I'm only going to tell you part of the picture in my YouTube channel, whereas if you come and pay for the course, you'll get more information. That's not the case at all. In fact, probably everything that I've said in the courses at some place or other, I've said in other places, outside of the cost of the course. So on YouTube, for example. However, the problem with YouTube is that the information is often out of date, and I'm talking about just my channel. I've made so many videos about Ecamm Live, but Ecamm Live is going through such development and at such a pace that old videos that I've done on Ecamm, well, there are easier and different ways to do things. And the other thing is that on YouTube, that you often don't necessarily know if you've got all of the information. So when I'm trying to learn something, if I am trying to, well, let's take Ecamm Live. When I started looking at Ecamm, I did go and watch videos online myself to learn how to use it. And I never really knew if I'd got the full picture, because it was a 5-minute video here, a 10-minute video there, and so on. And so you're always kind of wondering, Do I know everything I need to know yet, or is it just a case of waiting and figuring it out later on? And so I wanted to make sure I'd got something that was all encompassing. And I did try and address this with my mammoth 4.5 hour Ecamm Live tutorial, which was another one take video that I did on my channel. And it was basically 4.5 hours. I thought, right, well, I'm going to make a video where I sit down and I just go from start to finish with somebody who's never used Ecamm before, how to get it set up, how to do all the things that I do with it, such as create Stream Deck buttons to personalize your Stream Deck to control Ecamm with, use Keynote to bring in little animations and stuff. And I covered absolutely everything in that one 4.5 hour video on YouTube. And I know some people talk about, people's attention spans and them wanting short little bite-sized things, but that was one of my most popular videos. People do actually like having it all in one place, knowing that they're going to be guided through from end to end on how to do things. Well, the problem was that then, you get to the situation where they bring out a new version of Ecamm, and that 4.5 hour video, some of it is out of date. For example, now in Ecamm Live, we have camera overlays, so I can just make a scene like this one that I was in, where we just got the little camera here of me. I've got a screen share over to that side. Well, it used to be in Ecamm that you would need to create this little border in a graphics program and make a little cutout for where your face was going to be, and you would have to make overlays to actually mask, where your camera was. Whereas now we've got camera overlays that you can just easily make this with very little fuss whatsoever, and you don't need all of that functionality. So technically, that 4.5 hour video, which people still do watch, is out of date. And so that was the kind of other motivation for making the courses, is not to put things behind a paywall, but just to give people that organization. And so the benefit of having a course is, the way my courses are structured is they're all in really short bite-sized videos. And it means a couple of things. First of all, it makes it a lot more bingeable, for want of a better word. When somebody is learning and they can just see, I can just watch one more video, it's just another minute, it's just another 2 minutes, and that isn't in my interest. It's not like I'm getting extra for the number that they watch, like you do on YouTube, where you actually benefit from people watching more and watching your next videos, but it actually just makes it a better learning experience, because people feel like it's not so daunting. They're not coming into, I've got to watch a 40-minute video, but rather it's just another minute. They can sort of work their way through it like that. But the other thing is, it means that it's a lot easier to keep up to date, because if there are any features that are added or changed, then you don't have to go and recreate the whole video. But it does still give people that organization, and it also acts as a resource. So if somebody's got something that they're doing and they just want to know about sticking in Ecamm Live how to create overlays, they can just go back to the course and just go to just that specific part, knowing that there is that little resource there that's going to help them. So I kind of see them as more like sort of encyclopedias almost of the subject matter. So that was kind of my motivation for doing it. But as I started doing these, I was thinking about all of the other different courses that I would create, not just for Ecamm and Zoom and Rodecaster and all these other things, but also coming back to like the automation course that was the kind of instigator, I guess, for the channel, thinking about Mac productivity and all of that kind of stuff. And then getting feedback from people about using the Keynote for presentations. And it's something that I just sort of take for granted, but then I got feedback that people wanted to understand more about how to use that. And it's a free application for the Mac, and it's really powerful for more than just presentations. And so, creating a masterclass on that as well to sort of teach people how to do these things. So as I sort of was creating these courses, I always had in my mind that, at some point I would create an academy, because if you're creating standalone courses, that's one thing. But then there is, sort of always another course potentially. There's always another cost then of which course do I get? There's a trade-off there, and which ones do I need? And so that's why the Academy was born, really, was as a way to basically give people the access to all of the courses that I was creating, existing and on an ongoing basis, that then could be an ongoing resource. So I suppose I should just mention it again and show you. But the Take One Tech Academy gives you access to all of the existing and upcoming courses as well. You can find it all out on the in the Take One Tech .io/academy, and here you can see upcoming courses, existing courses. Actually, the next one that's coming out, which is just I've just got a few more lessons to add in, and then it will be into the academy. But that is my YouTube beginner's guide. So as well as the masterclasses, which I started with, I was getting a lot of asked questions for beginner's guides for people who just want to get up and running without going into a full 130, 150 lesson masterclass, but they just want the basics to get up and running, and that's what these beginner's guides are. So actually, as I say, the next one that's going to be released any day now is the YouTube beginner's guide. So if you are just starting on YouTube, then that would be one to consider. But as I say, you get this as part of the academy in any case. Then we've got the masterclasses in as well, and a few testimonials and things like that. Monthly workshops. So I've just run one of those just a few days ago. So every month there is a workshop on various different sort of deep dives into specific topics related to that. And then the accelerators are cohort-based courses. So whilst the beginner's guides and masterclasses you learn at your own pace online, the accelerators have got an in-person component, not in person, I should say, virtual meeting component. So you don't meet up anywhere as such, but you are learning with a group of other people, so learning at a specific pace. And then there is also group coaching and one-to-one coaching as well. And there are a number of different pricing tiers for that as well. So that was the academy, and that basically launched in end of March this year. So yeah, it was kind of like a year on YouTube before I started making the courses, and then again about a year after that I actually launched the academy, where to get access to all of that ongoing learning resources on a subscription basis. Now, the irony then, as I mentioned, was that when I started spending more time on Take One Tech, I've been producing fewer videos on YouTube, and that wasn't necessarily intentional. It's just been the nature of the fact of, my attention has been diverted to, creating all the course content and stuff like that. However, I don't intend it to be like that forever. I am looking to, as I start putting out all of the courses that I've got on the schedule to then shift more towards creating more of the YouTube videos. And whilst I started out doing the 100 videos in 100 days, as I mentioned, and they were predominantly pre-recorded, I was doing a weekly live stream. But the weekly live stream was more of it was kind of my little check-in, I guess, with everybody, and my own personal accountability to be documenting the process. So at the start of every live stream for the first year on YouTube, at least, I was basically explaining, what my process had been, what my progress had been, and sort of charting, the growth of the channel in that time. So as I say, it was kind of like a little check-in in terms of the whole growth and the progress. What then happened is I kind of stopped producing the actual recorded videos, and then these live streams just became the thing that I was doing, and each live stream would be focused on something. So the live stream became more of a tutorial as opposed to me just having a chat with some friends in my basement, which is where I started. I haven't really talked about the studio and the evolution of that. All of the first videos on my channel for the first, I guess, up until the end of 2021. So at the time that I got monetized was also just happened to be over that Christmas and New Year. I set up this space, which was my studio space. I've actually got my first live stream queued up here. So this is what it used to look like with the green screen background there. Here is me speaking to nobody, demonstrating. If you can see at the back, it does actually have my MV7. So this was the first live stream talking about the gear that I was using to live stream. That was from the basement of my house. I've now moved into a different space, still in my house essentially, but a different space in the garden. And yeah, the sort of evolution of the studio just sort of built up over time as well. And I digress slightly. I don't know why I got sidetracked completely there by showing that up, but it was just sort of the evolution of the studio space as well, and the amount of gear that has sort of grown over time. So now, if we look at the space that I'm in right now, rather than just a single camera mounted on top of the monitor with a green screen and some lights on me there. Obviously now I've invested in some more studio gear. There's been a few more monitors added into the mix, a few more cameras. Previously I was using a 10-year-old Canon EOS 60D, and then I was using my iPhone, or even maybe a Logitech, was it a C920 as my top-down camera. So now I've got a few more cameras into the mix. But I think it's important to start with what you've got, but then also have a growth growth plan in place. So you don't necessarily need to get all the gear to start with. As I say, the first thing that I bought for the channel was just a microphone and the Stream Deck, and then repurposed my old camera. And that I didn't change that camera for nearly a year, I think. So I can't remember when I got this CVE10. Maybe that was a year ago, something like that. So yeah, starting with what you've got, but having a growth plan in place, though, is definitely the way to go there. And don't let the gear hold you back, but also, consider investing in your setup, because it does make things a lot, easier as you go forward. And so in terms of monetization, I feel like I've lost my track just a little bit, but there you go. We'll just continue on. In terms of monetization, I mentioned obviously about the coaching calls and the obviously the YouTube partner program and the buy me a coffee. The other thing was Amazon affiliates. So I set up my Amazon affiliate links. That again doesn't bring in a huge amount, but with all of these things, what I wanted to try and do is make sure that the channel was basically essentially cost neutral from the start. So there are things you have to pay for, like subscriptions to things like TubeBuddy, things like Restream is something that I was using at the time as well. Ecamm obviously is a subscription, and various other things. So being able to offset those though with even small little incomes from different things was something that was important to me. I wanted to try and start off as I meant to go on, and so Amazon is something that helped with that, being able to have affiliate links in all of my videos. One of the things that I did was I didn't initially have every bit of gear that I was using, in my video descriptions. It was just if I mentioned something in the video, I would put the Amazon affiliate link. However, at some point, because so many other people do this, I realized that what I should be doing is actually putting a bigger list of things that I use in the videos, because no matter what you're talking about in the video, somebody might go down in the description, like something about your video or the way that you're looking or the gear that you're using or whatever, and then that might be something that they click on, even though you haven't actually referenced it in the video. Like, what mic am I using right now? Well, the link is in the video in the description, just as all the other stuff is. And so one of the tools that I use is TubeBuddy. I'll talk about that a bit later as well. But they've got this find and replace function. And I basically use the find and replace to go and add in a bunch of links into my description. And that sort of bumped up my Amazon affiliate revenue. And that's around about $100 a month or something like that, just from that, aside from the Amazon influencer program, which I'll talk about later as well. So yeah, having those sort of affiliate links in just help to offset some of these other costs. Then again, there is all the tools. If there's any tool that you're using, then definitely find out if they've got an affiliate program. So Ecamm Live, all of these tools, by the way, if you want to go to find out more, you can go to my website and go to the resources page, takeonetech.io/resources. There's a load of free resources in there, but you'll also find a link to all the tools that I use, like Ecamm Live, TubeBuddy, and Epidemic for music. Obviously, all of the banging tunes that you're hearing right now. The only thing I use Epidemic for is actually my outro music. I used to have an intro on my channel, but I quickly dropped the intro, or not quickly, after about a year, I dropped the intro because people, when they're coming into a video, they don't need to see your intro titles. They just want the information. But it's just the outro music, so that's what I use Epidemic for. However, I am now on the Epidemic Ambassador program, so that comes from after you've had X number of referrals. I can't remember if it's 15 or 20 or something like that. But what it means is basically I'm not paying for Epidemic anymore, so that is a little benefit. And I only ever paid for it, I think, for the first year, and then the sort of referral commissions sort of added up. Another tool that I use a lot is Setapp, which gives you access to over 200 great apps that you can use on the Mac, and they're all kind of utility style apps, and there's some really useful ones for live streamers. I use for my outlines. I don't do scripts for my videos, but certainly for live streams I tend to have an outline to try and keep me at least on track of the sort of main bullet points that I want to cover, although you'll see that I still get myself lost and don't sort of refer to it too much. But for that I use a program called Cloud Outliner that's available on Setapp. I use trip mode to toggle off all of the different things that are accessing the internet. That is a little app that sits up in the menu bar and means that only the live streaming software is taking up my bandwidth, and things like Dropbox and Creative Cloud, Adobe Creative Cloud aren't sort of taking up bandwidth and trying to sync things in the background. So I use that one. I use something called One Switch to toggle on and off various different things on my Mac. Again, a little utility. I use iStat menus to monitor my processor usage and all of these kind of things. So there's a whole bunch of these little apps that are really useful that I use on the channel. And so Setup is one of the programs that I use, or the service I say, to get access to all of those different things. And they've had a great affiliate program where basically you get 1 month for every month for everyone you recommend. You both get a free month. That's the way to say it. Although they have now actually created a full-on affiliate program where you can get actual commission instead of just sort of 3 months. Because I think my setup is now kind of effectively paid up till 2027 or something like that, because of those sort of 3 months. So that was another thing that I added as an affiliate, even though it's not actually, it wasn't actual sort of incoming cash. It was still offsetting my my costs, which is what was important. And then, as I say, Academy, Ecamm, and TubeBuddy being the other one. So looking for things that are relevant to your audience that you can run your affiliates on. Run affiliate programs on to help offset the cost is something that I think is definitely worth doing. So in terms of some of the lessons that have been learned along the way, I've already mentioned, don't worry about the mistakes too much and don't let the mistakes hold you back. There is also this thing about consistency, and yes, it is important to be consistent. And so obviously for those first 100 videos, I was consistent. But some people get really stuck and hung up on this idea of, posting at exactly the same time every week. And I'm not too sure about that, to be honest. And if you look on TubeBuddy, which is a tool you can use to help manage your channel, as I say, I'll talk about that a bit more later, you can actually find like when is the optimum time to post your video. And I think that it's very easy to get hung up on that. Certainly for live streaming, that's maybe a little bit different because your audience, obviously, if you want to be live and have a live audience, then you've got to do it at a time that is going to be, work for everybody or work for the biggest possible audience, potentially, if that's the thing. But really, if you look at the replay statistics versus the live, and certainly look at how many people watch your video, like on the minute or the hour that you post it versus the ongoing thing, it really pales into insignificance. And if I think about like some of my biggest videos, if I come over to my stats, if I go over to my channel content here, my page here, and then I just sort these in order. So if I go to where we go, let me have a look. I just have to zoom out from here a little bit. If I go to views and look at all of the views on all of my videos, sort of highest to lowest. So this is my most popular video, 40,000 views. Well, I can guarantee that in the day that I posted it, or within the week that I posted it, it probably only had, like 100 or something like that. So this idea of you have to post at a specific time, I'm not too sure about that. I certainly think it's good, good to be consistent in terms of, having consistent content coming out. But yeah, don't necessarily need to get too hung up on that. And in fact, this sort of shows you this video did not really very much for the first 100. There you go, 114 days. In the first 114 days, it had 1,400 views. Now it reached a point where it just suddenly started getting traction. And then now this is basically 40,000 views 2 years later. It was one of the first videos I did, actually. And you can also see the revenue there from just that one video. Bear in mind that is since monetization started in at the end of wherever it was. So that's the other thing about these videos when you're thinking about them. If you have a video that sort of takes off a lot later, then there is the potential for a single video to generate, contribute a substantial amount of your YouTube revenue, bearing in mind, how small the overall revenue is there. So that one there was one of my most sort of popular. The other thing is, if I look through the list of all these top videos, I mentioned that Ecamm has got like the most videos on my channel. However, it's not my most popular content. They do get consistent views, but if you look down this list in order of number of views, we've got this one's about Stream Deck, obviously. This one here is about using the YouTube shopping tab on your channel. So you can add a merch shelf. So that is the second highest video, and it's about that. I mean, that is really kind of a departure from generally the stuff that I cover on my channel. That's all about how, if you look behind this, down below this video, if you're in the US, you should see a shopping thing where you can buy things like this, the Recovering Perfectionist hat and the live streamer hoodie and stuff like that. Trust me, I've bought more of this myself than I've sold, so I'm not not remortgaging the house off the back of my my merch sales. But anyway, it's there nonetheless. And then I've got one here about this Logitech remote. Where is it? I've lost it now. But little Logitech remote clicker. So yeah, that is my third highest video. Then we come down to Stream Deck, arranging windows with Moom. This one about the best folding keyboard, which happens to be this. I do think I'll have to mention this. It is in the link in the description as well. But this folding keyboard is just awesome. And I sort of mention it. Everyone seems blown away whenever I mention it. Well, a few select people who are geeks like me. Let me rephrase that. Not everybody. Some people are like, it's just a keyboard, I don't care. But the thing that's great about this keyboard is it's exactly the same size as the Apple keyboard when it's unfolded. But when it does fold away, it is just less than the size of an iPad mini. So it's a great little travel keyboard, and I use that all the time. So I digress slightly just to say that, that is one of my my bigger videos as well. So that's like the 5th or 6th largest. But as we go down the list, we're still seeing basically Stream Deck, obviously Rodecaster, Stream Deck, and I'm just looking to see if there's any Ecamm there. We've got to the first Ecamm video all the way down here. So I am aware of, what the main sort of audience for my stuff is, and it does seem to be more the sort of Stream Deck and the Stream Deck content and the Rodecaster content. However, I think if you look at that in terms of total views, that's one thing, but that is not obviously everyone who's subscribed to the channel. So if you look at the number of views there, 40,000, well, I've only got 6,000, whatever it is, subscribers, so they're not all subscribed. So I suspect that my subscriber base, though, like the actual core, if you like, are more heavily leaning towards Ecamm, just because that is, sort of the community that I spend a lot of time in as well. There's a lot. I'm not going to go into analytics too much, because we could go down a rabbit hole, and certainly looking at things on this really high level doesn't really give you the full picture at all. There's lots of other things to consider in terms of, traffic sources and all of that kind of stuff. But nevertheless, I digress once again, as I often do in my live streams and also my recorded videos. It does make me laugh when people leave comments on some of my YouTube videos, talking about the edits or the lack of it, saying I should tighten up the edit a little bit more. There's no edit, I'm afraid. So that's the reason for that. So the reason we were talking about this was about the sort of consistency, then in terms of being consistent on these different channels. And I certainly have not been consistent in many respects on my channel, apart from the live stream, which is weekly, and I have missed a couple of those here and there. That has been the point of consistency, certainly for the last year. But if you look at the sort of stats on my channel, then what you'll see is that there is a very good correlation between these things. So if I go to my analytics and just show you things like my views, for example, and I'll take this into a bit of a bigger view. So let's just look at views, and then I'll go to this one, see more information, and then I'll just show you a single bar chart basically with just my total views. So I'll select total views in here, and then I will go to basically all time, clicking in here, and go to lifetime. I can see the sort of ups and downs of this, and I can say exactly, what was happening at that time. It makes perfect sense, the times when I've slowed down. What I will say is there have been points along here. This is perhaps a little hard to see, but for when you're kind of looking at this at the time, obviously, here it's trying to allow for, spikes and things like that. So all of the data, further down the line where the views were lower are all squashed down. However, what I did notice was, at the time, this wasn't squashed. It all, was spiking up and down, and so they will fluctuate throughout the days and weeks and whatever. But there were distinct points, like here, which is on the 4th or 5th of June, where there was a video that I put out that suddenly caused a spike in traffic. and views, and then that kind of like new level, it settled down a little bit and then maintained that sort of new slightly higher level. Then I went along again, and then there was another thing that happened where I put out another bit of content which grabbed, you know, another sort of set of viewers, I guess, and then when it dropped down to a slightly higher level than it was before. So you can see that there's these kind of like spikes and then plateaus, and just like this one here. So this was a spike where there was something that I put out and then it dropped down, and what the video was is kind of irrelevant at this point, although I do know what all these spikes were from. But when the level has sort of died down, it's always come down to a slightly higher level. So that's been the story of my channel, really. It's not been a total, you know, straight line, and it's also not been like a, you know, a complete hockey stick as we talked about earlier, but it is this thing of like these incremental step ups and then sort of drop down again to a higher level than it was at before. So we're going sort of stepping up like this. But also there's been a number of kind of places where the channel could have, I would say, taken off a lot more than it has, but it's been down to me, you know, not continuing to be consistent in the video content, because I do feel that even though some of my live streams do get really, you know, high replay value on, you know, after the fact, I do think there's this discrepancy between when somebody sees a video on YouTube, if they see that it was streamed so many days ago versus if they see that it was, you know, a recording. And I know that I have that feeling as well, that when I see a video, I think, well, this is going to be a really sort of concise video about a specific topic. Whereas if I see something that's a live stream, I think, well, there's maybe going to be audience interaction and stuff like that. And then there is also this feeling of kind of like, well, if it was streamed a while ago, I've probably missed the boat on it almost. So I think that people have a slightly different viewpoint on live streams versus on videos. And that's also why I do try on these live streams to keep the content a little bit tighter, and not allow myself to be distracted. Because if you watch my first live streams, you know, I was just chatting away, going off down rabbit holes all of the time, and I still do that even with just myself. So imagine what it's like if I'm constantly, you know, asking questions and bringing comments up and all of that kind of stuff as well. So I do like to try and get the content part out, and then, you know, have the Q&A more towards the end or at the end of different sections, which I realize I'm neglecting the chat, so I will come back to you in just a moment as well. But that's why I try and do that, so that it does improve that sort of replay value as well as the sort of live, and then obviously get into any questions. If incidentally you do have any questions watching live, then do feel free to drop those in. If you've got any questions about any aspect of this, you know, in terms of the stats or any aspect, I'm an open book in terms of you know, this side of stuff and the business and everything like that. But yeah, so this has been my sort of growth path, has been sort of specific points that have had an impact. But there have been parts here, like, for example, I mentioned around about, where was it, April last year. So you'll see that I had a lot of videos going out. And then in around mid-April, I kind of stopped producing any videos. And I didn't put a video out for ages. And so the sort of numbers stagnated a little bit because it was just my live stream. Then this was... Actually, this was around about the time that the Rodecaster Pro 2 came out. However, most of those views were actually driven by not the Rodecaster videos that I was putting out, but a new update to Stream Deck which came out. And so there was this spike in views from the Stream Deck videos coupled with the Rodecaster videos. Again, if you want to think about this in terms of capitalizing on that audience, which is a terrible way of saying it, but I didn't really do that because I then went back to not posting consistently on the channel. And so that's why these numbers are a little bit up and down, because they basically go up when I post something and then they go down when I don't. So that's, you know, the views are obviously driven by the content. I did get a bit more consistent with posting, and specifically with my live streamer backstage podcast that drew some of the content in there as well. And then it was around about the beginning of end of December, or beginning of December, I should say, was my last actual video that I posted. And I was really shocked when I came to post a video just about a few weeks ago or a month ago, and realized that I hadn't actually posted an actual video to my channel apart from the live streams since December. So it'd been like, you know, 4.5 months or something without posting just a pre-recorded video. So this is all sort of coming from this idea of consistency, and I would say that I have not been consistent except with my, you know, live stream and missing one or two here and there. But that has been the only thing that has been consistent in my channel, and I do want to really get back to the consistency, and that sort of brings me on to the sort of future direction of the channel, really. which is that obviously I'm building out the content for the Academy, which has taken me away from the stuff that I'm doing on YouTube to some extent. However, it's just a case of me wanting to make sure that I've got that big body of work there in the Academy and course material in the Academy, because all of those different components do kind of fit into all of the different, things that I'm basically helping people with. And when it comes to my audience, obviously, there's everybody who watches on YouTube. But when I came to sort of realize that the people who book coaching calls with me were in quite a specific demographic, and it's essentially, either solopreneurs, either business people or coaches that are wanting to use all of these tools in their business. And so that is really the core of the people who are ultimately, booking calls with me. And so the Academy has been sort of tailored for people who want to, level up their online presence, be it on social media, in, YouTube and things like that, but also in their business meetings on Zoom and so on, and create more engaging content and therefore also more engaging presentations. So there's that kind of like sort of crossover between the content creator and also the, the business entrepreneur who wants to basically level up their appearance in their meetings, or also a lot of work with coaches, be they business coaches, also actual fitness coaches as well, but where they're doing things online and they want to be able to deliver their message and educate people online as well. So that's kind of like the overall sort of core demographic, I would say, of people that I've been helping in coaching calls, and so that's how I kind of adapted the Academy. But once I've got all of those different core components in place, then I will very much be coming back to, creating a lot more content for the channel, because this is essentially the sort of one of the primary sort of marketing tools, essentially, for the Academy as well. And obviously, in doing in delivering valuable content as well. But nevertheless, there is that sort of component to it. And what you may have noticed, if you've been following along with the channel for a long time, is the way that things have slightly changed in terms of the delivery, but also the fact that I'm trying to include a very distinct sort of call to action in every video as well. So certainly with the with the live streams where there is a topic, there'll usually be some sort of download or whatever it is associated with it, because what I'm really looking to do as well is build my email list, and I make no secret of that. And indeed, that is part of what we cover in the Academy, is how to use a YouTube channel or other social media platform as a content marketing platform as well, whereby you're delivering value first, and then you have other products that may be of interest to those people. So if I just go over to take a look at the website, you'll kind of see the direction things are going a little bit. This has been something that's been a work in progress, and I can say that, none of the stuff that I'm doing right now is perfect, and it's not quite where I want it to be. So I haven't sort of said, right, well, I'm not going to get all this ready until absolutely everything is finished. I refer you to my previous statements regarding being a recovering perfectionist. It's about actually skating to where the puck is going, getting the ball rolling and heading in a direction, and sort of iterating and so on. But just recently, I did do a big update to my website. If I go to the right scene. And this kind of outlines, all the different components, I guess, because I didn't really have a consistent look to every part of the website, and also I didn't have it it wasn't necessarily clear all of the different offerings and things like that you can get with Take One Tech. So now I have split that down into essentially three core components, being personalized coaching and guidance, online education with the courses and the Academy. And by the way, the Academy courses are still available as sort of standalone courses as well, if there's just one particular aspect that you're interested in. And then obviously the resources as well, so the free resources that are there to help with education as well. But then as we go down, there's basically just links into each individual section. So the Academy, the coaching, some obviously testimonials from happy clients. And then also the first actual event, which is coming up in October. So this is the first kind of live Take One Tech event. I've done plenty of events before that I've run, educational events and networking events and stuff like that. But this is the first in-person event for Take One Tech happening in October. It's called the Digital Stage Revolution, and it's all about transforming your online impact and using all of these tools together to level up your game when it comes to all the stuff I've just been talking about: presentations, in meetings, online, coaching and working with coaching clients and doing that effectively online, and then also the online content creation as well. So that's coming up in October, and you can register your interest for that in the description as well. You'll find a link in the description. Digitalstagerevolution.com will link you basically back through to the website, and you can register your interest for that event. It is in Dallas, 7th to 10th of October, but I am going to be running an online component of that as well, because obviously the irony of talking about a digital stage and doing it as an in-person event in a conference room is not lost on me. So I will be doing that as a virtual event as well, or a hybrid event, I should say. And part of that will be to actually be live demonstrating like how that is all being done, because certainly some of the people who are going to be coming are specifically looking for how to do these kind of live and hybrid events, or hybrid and virtual events. So that will be all covered in there as well. But anyway, I'm just talking about this to go through the different aspects of the offerings. So you can see here the courses as well. We've got the beginner's guides to just get up and running with different topics, the masterclasses that are a deep dive into a specific subject. Then the accelerators are a way to learn with others. And then finally, the academy is the all-encompassing, gives you access to all of those different learning resources, and then more in terms of the coaching and stuff like that that I already talked about. Coming down then on the website, the other offerings here are upcoming virtual workshops. So these are monthly workshops included for all Academy members, but you can also just buy access to those as well if you just want to come to one or the other of them. And then this was another early monetization aspect to the channel as well. I do make a lot of Stream Deck icon packs for my own use, and so I made those available. And again, this is only something, I mean, some of these icon packs, there's a couple in here that are, a couple of dollars. Well, it's amazing how much these couple of dollars add up when you've been doing this for a couple of years. And so it all just does help. And so if you want to think about a way to monetize your channel, is thinking about some little things like this that you may be able to give that for a small cost, but that will help offset your overall costs. So I've got a number of icon packs. There is also a free icon pack in there specifically for the Stream Deck Plus, so you can go and check that out at the takeonetech.io/store. We'll take you over to that one directly instead of going to the homepage. And then we've got the free resources. And this is kind of the point that I was getting to, which is that you'll notice that in all of my videos recently, there is usually some sort of free download associated with it. And I'm very careful to make sure that these are delivering real value. And it's not just an upsell. I hate these things where somebody says, oh, go and get this free guide, and then you download it and you find it's nothing more than a single page PDF with very little of actual substantive value in it. And so I'm very careful about making sure that whenever I do put something up here, that it is something that is going to provide real standalone value. But as I say, I make no secret of the fact that the point here is that with this and the other resources, this is all about email database building as well as delivering value. And so there's a number of different resources that you can get. So these guides, different templates and checklists. You'll also find the recommended services on this page as well that I'm using to, obviously these are all my affiliate links here, but these are all services that I use and genuinely believe in. So this is kind of like a focus and a way that I've sort of pivoted really, is to make sure that I have all of my offerings clearly visible on my site. If you just want to stay up to date, if there's a course that you're waiting for, then you can also just sign up to the newsletter here as well, or sign up to the mailing list so you'll be kept up to date about any of those new courses that are coming up. And you can also just contact me if there's something specific you'd like to see on here as well. But yeah, this is something that is going to be a bit more of a focus going forward, is just being a lot more sort of proactive from my own point. And this is probably something I should have done a lot earlier, but it was just one of the, much further down my list of priorities. But certainly if you're starting out to be starting to think about, actually other ways to monetize your channel and be collecting those email addresses to then be able to politely market your services to. And I've got to say that I'd dropped a bit of dropped something the other day when I inadvertently sent something to the incorrect market segmentation. And so I was basically sent an email blast out to a large number of people that shouldn't have received it. So albeit to send them something free. So it wasn't like I was sending something that was like paid or anything like that. But nevertheless, it was a bit of a mistake on my part. But I digress again. Just thinking about ways to sort of build up your email database and then being smart about the way that you nurture that. Because confess about this, whilst it's something that I've done in all my other businesses and even teach in certain ways, when this started out as more of a hobby channel, let me be clear about that, in the beginning, a hobby channel and an experiment, more to the point as well. I wasn't so focused on the sort of monetization aspect of it. And had I been starting out like that from now, then I would have been a bit more intentional about not just collecting, email addresses in exchange for value, but also nurturing that email address because that email list, I should say, because I haven't done a great job of doing that. And it's something that I will be addressing going forward to start to sort of kickstart those relationships again by delivering ongoing sort of consistent value via email for those that are interested in it as well, I should add. So that is something that I would do slightly different now. Would be starting a little bit more intentionally from that point of view. And so once I start creating more of the content on YouTube, having got the courses in place in the academy, there are also some other areas that I will sort of shift my attention more towards, because one of the other areas that I've neglected in actually this year is Amazon Live, because I am on the Amazon Influencer Program. So I can make Amazon shoppable videos, which are essentially making video reviews and things like that for Amazon, so that when people are on Amazon browsing for products, you may see a little bit further down the Amazon page in the US that there are videos from users that basically demonstrate products and things like that. Well, those are called shoppable videos, and the way that it works on Amazon is if somebody watches your video prior to making the purchase, then you get the affiliate credit for that. And there's also live video on Amazon where it's basically like a live stream, but then you have what's called the carousel down below. And when you're planning your live stream, you basically choose the products that you're going to be talking about in the live stream. And then when you stream, you can basically select to highlight the product you're talking about at any given time. And these actually appear, not all the time, but they'll choose who is going to appear actually right at the top of the page of the products that you're talking about in your video. So if I do a Rodecaster unboxing, for example, then it will appear right at the top when somebody's looking at the Rodecaster. They'll say, oh, there's a live stream. They can go and check it out and see what somebody is saying about the product. And again, you get the commission from that. So that is something that I did do towards the end of last year. But this year, just with a slightly shift in focus and time constraints, I haven't got back into that. So that's something else I want to sort of increase my focus on probably in the sort of second half of this year and get back to doing that. The other thing that I've neglected also on a similar note to that is my Live Streamer Backstage podcast. And you may have seen that there's been episodes going out recently. However, those were recorded at the end of last year. And the way that podcast worked is I would stream it to LinkedIn and to Amazon Live. LinkedIn, because Live Streamer Backstage was all about how people were using live streaming in their business. And so it had an appeal for the business audience, was my thinking, rationale here. But then also at the end of the episode, we talk as well about the tech that they're using. And so streaming it to Amazon simultaneously was for the sort of tech side, where they're talking about their gear and kit and things like that, to be helpful to Amazon shoppers who are looking for those kind of things and can actually see the products in the context of somebody who is using them for live streaming as well. So then after live streaming to Amazon and LinkedIn, then what I do is I take the recording of that and have posted it to my YouTube channel. So going forward, I think I might slightly evolve that the format of that. I've done 25 episodes of the podcast now. And again, I kind of went on a hiatus of recording. I batch record them basically. I did start off doing one a week for the scheduling out the guests that I was going to have on. But then I had a couple of instances of people dropping out at the last minute, having to get somebody in. And so I thought what I need to do is just batch record them. So I started just recording basically 4 a week and got them all together. So then the recordings could sort of drip out after that. In terms of having that on my channel going forward, obviously podcasts have now come to YouTube in fully implemented in YouTube. You can now create a podcast in YouTube. However, I'm still not entirely sure that this channel is the right place for that podcast. When I look at the views that I get on that versus the other content, I often wonder, is this the right place for that, and should it be a channel in its own right? So I'm still sort of debating what to do about that in my own in my own little brain. So we'll see where that goes. But I'm certainly thinking of sort of pivoting the format of it slightly. And I'll reveal more about that a little bit later. Not today, but as we go forward. And as I kind of figure it out, I'm thinking about changing the formatting of it slightly and deciding where to put that. But certainly, I mentioned there LinkedIn. That is another focus going forward. I want to be creating more content for LinkedIn. And I'm actually wanting to be a little bit more specific about what I'm putting where, and maybe having some slightly different content that I'm doing in other live streams. So at the moment, I do this one live stream a week on YouTube. Before sort of last half of last year, when I was doing more stuff on Amazon, I also did a weekly thing on there, the Sunday session, where it was basically a deep dive into some aspect of tech, specifically talking about products. So we'll be doing more of that going forward as well. Again, second half of this year. Just looking at doing some different live shows on Amazon going forward, on LinkedIn, specifically more for the sort of business side of things. So that's where I'm looking to sort of go. I'm fully into obviously the academy, getting that initial content. That is my main focus right now. But then also more of these live events. So I'm doing one in Dallas, obviously at the end of October, that I've talked about, but I will be looking to do these in different locations. So I'm initially looking at Singapore. It's close to me where I am here in Thailand, but then also looking in Europe and Australia as well to run some sorts of similar events. So we'll see about that and upcoming dates to be released. But incidentally, on that note, if you're not interested in the one in October in terms of being there in person, but you are interested in the idea of this Digital Stage Revolution event, then you can certainly still sign up and you'll be on the list then, kept up to date with all of those different dates. I will just mention TubeBuddy because I've sort of talked about it a few times, and I will say that it's something that really, really did help me. And you can get a free trial at takeonetech.io/TubeBuddy, and in that page you'll also find it's linked in the description, by the way. You'll also find a link to my TubeBuddy playlist because I've got a lot of tutorials on it, and I found that it has been really valuable. When I was first starting out, it basically seemed to be a really great way to act as a checklist to help me when I'm uploading videos. And it's got such deep integration with YouTube Studio. So if I just come out of these stats for a minute, if I was to go into any one of the videos on my page, let me close down some of these things for a second. If I go down to my content and then go into any one of these videos, what you'll see is that TubeBuddy is, well, you can see it up here at the top, first of all. There's a little TubeBuddy icons dotted all over the place here. You've got various different things down here. This one here is, whoops-a-daisy, if I go down a bit too far there, this best practices. It will give you little check marks to tell you, if you've done all of the right things for the video. So it helps you in terms of getting your, adding in chapter markers, getting your title right, your description. So I found that it was a really great sort of checklist almost for me to go through initially. But then it's been really helpful in, crafting better titles. It's been really great for split testing of thumbnails and things like that. And split testing descriptions and titles as well. And that is one thing that I mentioned earlier where I got to a certain point. I decided that I was going to do a slight tweak or redesign to these very basic thumbnails in any case. And I changed them to something that I thought looked better. But the analytics came back and what I'd created actually was significantly lower in terms of performance when you look at the click-through rate. So how many times it showed the video versus how many people clicked. Well, with the new thumbnail, sort of like for like, the older style was it seems better. So it's been really valuable for that because I wouldn't have necessarily known. It went against what I thought, in my own personal judgment, this looks better. The stats came back and said, no, actually, you're wrong. The other one did. So TubeBuddy's been really valuable. I mentioned as well the find and replace as well. So there's various different tools in here to be able to do lots of different things. But one of them is this find and replace. So if you want to go and update a load of data in your in your descriptions or anything like that, not data, but wording in your descriptions, you can do that from in here. So these bulk tools. You can also add overlays over the top of your thumbnails. So for example, when I'm running a giveaway or promotion, then I can just go and apply an overlay to all of my thumbnails that direct people to go and do that, and use find and replace to go and add a link, into the description or whatever. And that might be something like the Rodecaster Duo giveaway that I'm just currently running. So you can find a link to that in the description as well, and also down in the chat. But yeah, at the end of this month, at the end of May, I'll be picking one winner to win one of the new Rodecaster Duos. The Rodecaster Pro 2 has been just an amazing bit of gear for me, and it's just completely changed the way that I've done things from a presentation point of view in Zoom, in these videos as well, and being able to do things with Discord as well, where I can route the backstage audio into me whilst it's not going out into the live stream. It's just an amazing piece of gear, and the Rodecaster Duo is almost like the ultimate Rodecaster for this specific use case that I have, because I could quite easily get away with only having 2 mic inputs, and fewer mixers, fewer faders. This is really kind of like the ideal device for me, and that is why I'm giving one away, because I feel like for my my target core demographic, the people that I have consultation calls with, this would be the perfect device, the Rodecaster Duo. So not yet released, it's been announced obviously, but yeah, if you want to enter, go and check the link in the description, and that draw will be done at the end of May, and I'll be doing the draw live on the live stream as well. So let's just hope it isn't a friend or family member that wins it. Otherwise, that will look very odd. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. But I digress once again. When I want to promote something like that, it's really easy. You'll see if you go into any of my other videos, you'll see that there is a link to that giveaway in those videos. So TubeBuddy has been really great in that respect. So I just really wanted to give it a little shout out. Also, the little milestones that you get on TubeBuddy. So, on the TubeBuddy app on your mobile, or you can go to the website, and you can get these little milestones for 1,000 subscribers, whatever it happens to be. So all these little milestones that I've been talking about earlier, the little celebration that you get from posting that on Twitter or Instagram, and the encouragement you get back from that, and just I really like that aspect of it. It's a nice little thing. So TubeBuddy's definitely been with me all the way, and you can find out about that in the description, takeonetech.io/TubeBuddy. Now, I'm going to come to some comments, because I have been completely neglecting the comments. So if you're still watching, watching from, hi, Jamie, watching from Brisbane, Australia. Well, thanks. I'm glad you find the lessons useful. And it is really nice to get positive feedback, in comments. I don't really get much negativity. In fact, in the recent episode of the Creators podcast, we talked about negativity and negative things that you get in the comments, but I don't really get much of that. I only get, I suppose, really truth, which is I waffle a bit too much, which I do. I sometimes take too long to get to the point, which I do. So nobody's ever said anything really nasty, but it has been really nice to get all the positive feedback, and also using the feedback for things, questions that people ask, to feed back into the videos. And in fact, some of my most popular videos, and the ones that have had the biggest impact, have been ones that have been purely driven by somebody else's question, be it in another video I've done, or maybe in the Ecamm Live group, because I spend a lot of time in there and listen to what people are struggling with and the questions they've got, and then I'll make videos to address that. Great to see you here. Thank you very much for the congratulations. Thank you, Professor Mark. Great to see you here too. Thanks. I'm glad you like the videos too. David Harvey, great to see you too. Lots of familiar faces, and people I know who have been around for a long time follow me. So it's great to see you all here as well. And yes, the gear acquisition syndrome, the gas is something that is very real. And I think that there is one thing about buying gear for the sake of it, but there is something to be said for, and it is a bit of a thing, isn't it? any problem, there is usually a bit of tech that you can solve it with. So it does need to have its limits. But yeah, I think when you're sort of building things up and you are buying things that are improving your content and what you're delivering is, it is an investment, and it's a useful investment as well. I'm certainly don't feel that, any of the things that I've now got in my studio space, which I didn't have when I began, I wouldn't necessarily have gone and bought all of this stuff straight off the bat, because it's only been through me understanding what I'm trying to do that I've realized, the things that I need to add in to improve. So it's easy to look from the outside at somebody's overall setup and then feel like you need to go and get all of that. It's always better to start with what you've got and then just build up over time. But that part you mentioned there about procrastination, I think that is a very real thing, that sometimes people look at, somebody else's studio and think that, I really need to get all of this before I can start. And so definitely never let the tech be something that holds you back, whatever stage you're at. And in that case, I mentioned earlier about don't just go live on your phone. And what I was meaning by that was I feel like having some preparation is the way that it worked for me. But there's nothing wrong totally with actually using your phone. I mean, these days the iPhones cameras and Samsung or whatever brand you're using are just amazing. So you can totally use a phone as your main camera. And if you're using either continuity camera on the Mac or something like Camo to get a lot more finer adjustment out of your camera, then the iPhone is technically all you need. Just get some nice lighting going on, then you're good to go. So I cut the lesson or learning bit from your live as a shorter standalone video. I guess that's where I was talking about the sort of format of it. Yeah, I could totally actually just cut out the sort of lesson part and repost that. And that just comes down to the reason I haven't done that, Michael, is just because of the this whole thing of editing. I've always talked about repurposing my content, but I never get around to it because, again, it's just this editing factor as well. Do you have course content in setting up multiple monitors on a Mac? Do you know what? I actually did my I actually did a workshop last week, which was about technical setup for virtual presentations, and it was all about. It was intended to be all about how to set up from a technical point of view, using multiple Macs, first of all, and to do presentations on Zoom or be it Ecamm or whatever, or in Teams, I should say, and then how to actually set up everything on the Mac. I've certainly got tutorials on the channel about these different things. However, this was the event that I inadvertently sent to a rather large email database, and initially it was intended to be a much smaller event for a much more smaller group of people who I knew were at a certain level. So I'd got a whole sort of plan of attack for that laid out. But then because this email suddenly went out to a massive group of people due to my own foolishness and error, then there was going to be people coming in that were potentially at a completely different level, and maybe didn't even know about Ecamm, never mind, managing things on the computer, automation and stuff, the automation tools I was using. So in the end, the workshop, I'll say, did not go entirely to plan because I basically rewrote what I was going to deliver kind of 4 hours before the event. Now, I got some good feedback, so people maybe didn't notice, but I'll just tell you that's what happened. But then, because I'd also mentioned in the email that there will be a replay available of this, now obviously I've got to stand by that and fulfill that. But what I'm figuring is, I feel like the workshop that I delivered, technical presentations for technical setup for virtual presentations, I feel like it was not the best for either group, either the people that wanted the really in-depth technical stuff, nor for the people that maybe were coming in that didn't really, have that initial sort of base knowledge. So what I've decided I'm going to do is I am actually going to create a completely free course that fulfills my free replay will be available, a completely free course, which is basically going to cover at a relatively high level, how to set up with multiple monitors using, the equipment that I'm using right now. So having camera, teleprompter, multiple screens. If I switch over to this one again, this is the way that I have this set up at the moment. And in fact, maybe I could switch to this other view. There we go. Sorry about my shiny bald head here. But this is basically the way that I've got this sort of laid out on my monitor is I've got these 6 different zones on this 43-inch monitor. And this is what I share in Ecamm. So in Ecamm Live, when I'm sharing, my YouTube stats, it's over here. My YouTube website is, sorry, my personal website is over here. I've got this one here, which was that YouTube video that I just queued up. This one down here is actually where I've got my Discord for the live streamer backstage area, my main Discord window over here, and this is just Stream Deck. So I've got these 6 different areas of the screen that I can share. Then in front of me, just down here, I've got a monitor that's got all of the chat. Then and in Ecamm to bring it in. I've also got one that is just the the YouTube chat itself in a popped out window. Just sometimes some extra things come in there, they come in a bit quicker. And then I've got this sort of run of show sort of notes down here and some Ecamm Live controls. And then in front of me, I am looking at my teleprompter, which is not actually prompting me, but I've just got my Ecamm output. So essentially I can see what you see. And then also in the workshop, I talked about how I use a second computer to bring in a presentation. So, in answer to your question, Jamie, I will have a course specifically on Mac automation in the Academy, but I will also be making this this kind of like free mini course that will be available that will talk about all of the setup of these individual components, including setting up multiple monitors specifically for this use case as well. So, if that is something that is interesting to you, then definitely go over to the website and you can find the link to just sign up to the mailing list is right there on the front page. So takeonetech.io, just go down to this Let's Connect, and then as soon as that is available, I'll be sending that out to everybody who's interested because, yes, as I say, made a bit of an error sending this out to everybody. But now that I've promised this replay, I'm not happy with the quality of the replay for those that are coming in without all of the background knowledge. So I'm just going to make a mini course and make that available to everyone for free, basically. So that is what I would recommend. I do also, though, on my channel, if you search for Moom, M-O-O-M, that is what I use for actually organizing all of the content on my monitors. So with Moom, you can basically create little snapshots. You can put all the applications where you want, save it as a snapshot, and then when you come to open all of those apps again, you can just press the keyboard shortcut or a Stream Deck button, and it will put all of those apps back in those same places on the screen. So that is just to maybe answer the direct question. I use Moom for that window management. Incidentally, there was a Stream Deck update that came out yesterday or the day before, and I released a video about that. And they've now added the close action into Stream Deck, which is something that was missing because you can set up a multi-action in Stream Deck with the open command to open a whole series of applications, files, and folders, and then use Moom to put them where you want them. But previously, there wasn't a close command to close it all back down again after the fact, whereas now in Stream Deck 6.2, there is. So that was a video that I just posted yesterday yesterday. So going down the list, thanks, Michael. Great to see you here, first of all, and glad you are finding it interesting. Hey, Parker, great to see you too. And indeed, the appropriate use of the little cowboy emoji there. Oh yes, the Michael is also the Oktoberfest in Munich, I thought. So yeah, there definitely will be something in Europe coming up. And well, thank you very much. But the one thing is, so yeah, who could give negative things to say to me? Well, of course, yes. Who should dare? However, there are some very genuine things that people say. So yeah, they're not unfounded. The negative comments they have. It's usually about me waffling on and not getting to the point quick enough, which is very very true. And everyone's different as well. So obviously people don't appeal to everybody, do they? Hey, Bicky, great to see you. And you're forgiven. No problem that you're a bit late. Jamie, what can I say about Discord and why I use Discord? Well, I was I won't say anti-Discord, but I didn't really feel it was for me when I ultimately, or just before I ultimately set up my Discord server. And the reason is because I'd been in Discord servers before. In various stock trading circles that I was moving in, that is a big use for Discord, or that is a group that typically use Discord quite a lot. And first of all, there is this thing of Discord is for gamers. I think there are some people who think that, which certainly is the origin of it. That's where it started. However, my experience of it was in these sort of trading servers. And what I found was they were very poorly organized, very poorly managed, and they'd got a load of people and very poor moderation, and in terms of not all of them, but the ones that I happened to be in. And so it was really off-putting for me, to be honest, because I went in there and I kind of felt like I was a little bit lost, first of all, couldn't find what I was looking for, didn't see the value in it, and it just didn't really appeal to me. So it kind of put me off Discord quite a lot. And then, fortunately, somebody who we were in Doc Rock's group was Keely Dunn, and the Discord coach. So if you search for Discord coach, I'll just drop the handle into the chat at Discord coach. She had been using Discord extensively herself for, I've probably spelled that wrong. I can't even spell the word coach. Never mind. If you search for Discord coach, you'll find her. But she had been using Discord in her own community for her other business as a hockey coaching community. And she was basically telling us how it had really transformed her interaction with her community. Now, she quickly convinced Doc Rock to take on Discord as well. And so then we got to see, an actual real live community in what Keely basically created for Doc. And when I went into that community, already been a part of Doc's community, but I mean, going into his Discord community, I realized that actually the experience you have in Discord is very much dictated by the server architect that you have been that has designed the server that you're in. So the organizational structure that you get in there, as I say, is something that can be, vastly different from one to the next. And so I realized quite quickly that I'd got a very skewed view of Discord based on those other experiences I'd had. Whereas when I saw what Keely did with Doc's server and the way that it was all structured and organized, then it was just like a light bulb going off. And it didn't take me long to be convinced, quite honestly, because the difference with Discord versus things like Facebook groups, if you want to make that comparison, they shouldn't really be compared like for like, but I know a lot of people will think about creating a Facebook group for their community. The trouble with that is you're still basically being served what Facebook wants you to see. And then you've got these issues of if you've ever been into a Facebook group, you've seen a post that's really interesting and you want to come back to it later. How easy is it to find? It's not at all, is it? If ever you can even find it. And sometimes it'll be, I'll remember somebody has posted something in the Ecamm Live Facebook group that solved a problem that I had, a year ago or 18 months ago. I feel like there's no hope of me finding that original post that solves that problem. However, one of the things that Keely taught about Discord was that, it is so much easier to, first of all, organize things into structured threads. And I guess what I should be doing here at this point is actually showing you my server rather than just talking about it. And I say my server, this is all being done with a great deal of help and assistance from Keely. I always say that if you see anything in here that looks good, it's likely Keely's idea. So if you see anything that doesn't look right, it's probably me going off reservation and off script. But here's my Discord server. And if you look down the left-hand side, it's split into different sections. And so I've split it up into different things for my Academy members. There's some things in here. Let me just shut these down. I've just noticed that Michael is in the Academy voice channel. I'm not sure if you mean to be in there or in the on-air backstage, but you can just, Michael, hop over to the on-air backstage. That's where I do all of my live streams. So we're in there and we can have like a little voice chat. It's like a Zoom call going on in the background in there. But anyway, I digress. The point of showing you this was to show that you've got these different sections. So when somebody's new into the Discord server, there's these different things like the little rules. The rules aren't very difficult. It's just basically be nice. Orientation. So here, posts to help people find their way around. Floor plan as well. That just tells people what all of these different sections are for. Place for people to introduce people and so on. I've then got a space for all of my content. So I wanted a way to sort of collect all that together. So as a community that's obviously built around Take One Tech, then if you click into the video section, it will show you all of my videos on my channel. But then also, the Creators Pod. So that's the podcast that I do with Rich and Keely, Michelle, Dina, and I was going to say something cruel then. I was going to say and Rob's sister, but and Rob. So that also gets posted in there. So this is kind of like a resource for other Take One Tech content. And by the way, I should just, while we're talking about this, definitely say if you're not already a member of the Take One Tech community, then you can find it at takeonetech.io/family. I'll just stick that up again. And that's how you get into the Take One Tech server. It's completely sort of free to join. And so then you can see my Instagram posts, any guest appearances that I'm on other shows, on other people's shows, and so on. But then further down here, this is where the real value comes, and this is in this Tech Talk section. And this is where I was saying about comparing this to Facebook. In Facebook, you've just got a long stream of posts, basically, whereas in here, in the Tech Talk section, we've got a channel for Ecamm Live. So this is for discussions about Ecamm Live, one for Rodecaster, all about the Rodecaster, latest updates, things like that. Any issues that people are having, they can just drop in here. Other channels in here for things like Loop Deck, video ideas, studio gear, automation, productivity, podcasting, YouTube. So all the kind of things that I cover on and around my channel are in here, but maybe you are not interested in Rodecaster, so you don't need to get that cluttering up your feed, because you could actually come in here and you could actually just mute this channel so that you don't hear about the Rodecaster stuff if you're not interested. Maybe you're only interested in automation and productivity, and so you can come and just watch, see what's going on in those threads and those conversations as well. The other reason that Discord is great as a creator, though, is because you are able to assign different roles to people, which give them access to different things. So if you come into the Take One Tech family, I don't like to call them servers because I think that makes it sound a bit inaccessible maybe to some. They maybe think it's too techie or something, a server. Well, actually, it's just a family. It's it's a forum, that kind of thing. So it's just like being in a Facebook group, except infinitely better. And so you can assign different sort of levels of access to people. So anybody can get access to this Tech Talk and get access to all of the conversations that are going on in there. However, there is then an Academy section. So in the Academy section, there are other little things in here, such as, the weekly Q&A that we have that goes on in here. There's also, PDF guides and different feedback, I should say, on things like the PDF guides and monthly workshops. So I'm getting feedback directly from Academy members, what they want to see me create in terms of videos, workshops, and so on. But only the people who are Academy members get access to all of this stuff. The same with my channel members as well. So I've got a section for channel members, and they get access to a whole separate area of the Discord server that regular members don't. However, I am very conscious of the fact that I want to make sure that all of this, these resources in terms of the conversations about specific topics are available to everyone. So highly recommend, if you're not already, then come along and jump in here. It's also a much better place to have a conversation, and part of my motivation for doing it was I got a bit frustrated with comments on YouTube where I'll see a list of comments that have come in, I'll answer to the comment, but it's almost like the second that I answer to it, it's kind of gone off my radar, and it's not easy to keep up with any replies to that, not easy to follow sort of threaded conversations. The other thing is, if somebody comments on a YouTube video and I reply to that YouTube comment, first of all, who is actually seeing that other than the commenter? If people aren't going down and reading those comments after the fact, after they've watched the video, and then also who's getting involved in that conversation. Whereas having a community, specifically in Discord, that to go along with your channel or your business or whatever it is, then that means that, first of all, everybody can see the questions and everyone can see the replies, but also there are people in there far smarter than me that can also add to the conversation and give their input as well. So it's a much better place for that. And yeah, this has been something that has just been like grown out of Discord, and the community aspect to the whole channel and the people that are in there now. It's just been another really rewarding aspect to it. And I guess it was in the beginning of last year that I actually set up the Take One Tech server, and then it took took a few months. I would guess it was around about March time, when I actually sort of opened the doors to it officially, if you like, rather than just getting all the things set up. But yeah, all credit to Keely for helping me get that up and giving me the information that I needed to, structure it, and advice on how to structure it. I won't show you any examples of bad service. There are plenty, but yeah, the sort of feeling in this is very much modeled on, what Keely did for Doc and what she's done in her own server. And I highly recommend, if you're considering if you're considering using Discord. I see Keely's dropped you a link in there, and for Twitter as well. Definitely hook up with Keely, get a coaching call with her, one of the discovery calls or whatever, and just find out, what Discord can do for your specific business. Because, yeah, nothing but good things to say in that respect. Highly recommend it. So if there are any questions or comments, either in the live feed, or if you are watching this on the replay and you want to know any more about anything that I've covered in this sort of rambling, almost 2-hour odyssey into various aspects of what I've been doing on YouTube, then do feel free to reach out either in the comments, or better still, as I say, go over to that Discord link and join the family over there and ask me any questions in there as well. I'm a total open book about all of this stuff. It's what I talk about in the academy. So we've got people in there that are looking to start their own businesses and look to adding a YouTube component to it. And indeed, as I said, the YouTube Beginner's Guide is going to be the next course that is added to the academy, and also just to the general course catalog. So if you're interested in that YouTube Beginner's Guide, the best thing to do is to actually just head over to the website takeonetech.io and just sign up to that mailing list, because then you will get notified as soon as that is available. And if you want to find out more about the academy specifically, then you can also just go and book a call. If I just show you quickly the academy page, if you are not sure which of these different tiers is right for you, then just down at the bottom you'll see that there is a little Let's Chat button. So just click on that, and then you can have an initial call. We can have a conversation to find out whether this is right for you. If you want to book an individual consultation session, you can do that as well. So if you go to the consultation page there, then you'll be able to find there is an option there to book just a free discovery call. It's a 20-minute call. We can have a little chat to find out how any of this might be of benefit to you in your business or your content creation journey. So yeah, and discordcoach.com, I think, just to answer your question, Jamie, I think that works too. Let me just get that. Fairly sure that one works as well. I'll just drop that into the chat, because that has got all the ways in there as well. I dropped in there. Whoops, not that. I copied your own comment there, or your own name. Let me try that again. There we go. There we go. That is the link there for you. I don't know what that other code is there, but there you go. So that is the way to get in touch with Keely. Highly recommend anybody interested in Discord at all, and or maybe if you're not interested in Discord, you probably should be. So if you haven't considered it, you definitely should have that call, just to find out how it may be able to help you in your business. Anyway, what I will do is I'll leave a link to some of my other YouTube content over on the right-hand side for those that are interested in content creation and growing on YouTube. Thanks to all of my channel members, and of course all of my Academy members too. I really appreciate all of your ongoing support and encouragement.